Still, I do not give up hope. I do not indeed go to my room anymore, but comfort myself with the thought that a few days are not enough to judge by. Afterwards, later on, there's plenty of time for that. So I go over to see Middlestat in the barracks, and we sit in his room. There is an atmosphere about it that I do not like, but with which I am quite familiar. Middlestat has some news ready for me that electrifies me on the spot. He tells me Kantorek has been called up as a territorial. Just think of it, says he, and takes out a couple of good cigars. I come back here from the hospital and bump right into him. He stretches out his paw to me and bleats, "Hello, Middlestat, how are you?" I look at him and say, "Territorial Kantorek, business is business and schnapps is schnapps. You ought to know that well enough. Stand to attention when you speak to a superior officer. You should have seen his face. A cross between a dud and a pickled cucumber." He tried once again to chum up, so I snubbed him a bit harder. Then he brought up his biggest guns and asked confidentially, "Would you like me to use my influence so that you can take an emergency exam?" He was trying to remind me of those things, you know. Then I got mad, and I reminded him of something instead. "Territorial Kantorek, 2 years ago you preached us into enlisting, and among us there was one, Joseph Bam, who didn't want to enlist. He was killed 3 months before he would have been called up in the ordinary way. If it had not been for you, he would have lived just that much longer. And now, dismiss. You will hear from me later." It was easy to get put in charge of his company. First thing I did was to take him to the stores and fit him with suitable equipment. You will see in a minute. We go to the parade ground. The company has fallen in. Middlestat stands there, stands them at ease, and inspects. Then I see Kantorek and am scarcely able to stifle my laughter. He's wearing a faded blue tunic. On the back and in the sleeves, there are big dark patches. The tunic must have belonged to a giant. The black worn breeches are just as much too short. They reach barely halfway down his calf. The boots, tough old clodhoppers with turned up toes and laces at the side, are much too big for him. But as a compensation, the cap is too small, a terribly dirty, mean little pillbox. The whole rig out is just pitiful. Middlestat stops in front of him. "Territorial Kantorek, do you call those buttons polished? You seem as though you can never learn. Inadequate, Kantorek, quite inadequate." It makes me bubble with glee. In school, Kantorek used to chasten Middlestat with exactly the same expression. Inadequate, Middlestat, quite inadequate. Middlestat continues to upbraid him. "Look at Botcher now. There is a model for you to learn from." I can hardly believe my eyes. Botcher is there too. Botcher, our school porter. And he's a model. Kantorek shoots a glance at me as if he would like to eat me, but I grin at him innocently, as though I do not recognize him anymore. Nothing could look more ludicrous than his forage cap and his uniform, and this is the object before whom we used to stand in anguish as he sat up there enthroned at his desk, spearing at us with his pencil for our mistakes in those irregular French verbs with which afterwards we made so little headway in France. That is barely 2 years ago, and now here stands Territorial Kantorek, the spell quite broken, with bent knees, arms like pothooks, unpolished buttons, and that ludicrous rig out. An impossible soldier. I cannot reconcile this with the menacing figure at the schoolmaster's desk. I wonder what I, the old soldier, would do if this skinful of woe ever dared to say to me again, "Bomber, give the imperfect of Ayer." Then Middlestat makes them practice skirmishing, and as a favor appoints Kantorek squad leader. Now, in skirmishing, the squad leader has always to keep 20 paces in front of his squad. If the order comes, "On the march about, turn," the line of skirmishers simply turns about, but the squad leader, who now finds himself suddenly 20 paces in the rear of the line, has to rush up at the double and take his position again 20 paces in the front of the squad. That makes altogether 40 paces double march. But no sooner has he arrived than the order of "On the march, about, turn" comes again, and he once more has to race up at top speed another 40 paces to the other side. In this way, the squad has merely made the turnabout and a couple of paces, while the squad leader dashes backwards and forwards like a fart on a curtain pole. That is one of Himmelstoss's well-worn recipes. Kantorek can hardly expect anything else from Middlestat, for he once messed up the latter's chance of promotion, and Middlestat would be a big fool not to make the best of such an opportunity as this before he goes back to the front again. A man might well die easier after the army has given him just one such stroke of luck. In the meantime, Kantorek is dashing up and down like a wild boar. After a while, Middlestat stops the skirmish and begins the very important exercise of creeping. On hands and knees, carrying his gun in regulation fashion, Cantorek shoves his absurd figure over the sand and immediately in front of us. He is breathing hard and panting his music. Middlestat encourages Cantorek, the territorial, with quotations from Cantorek, the schoolmaster. Territorial Cantorek, we have the good fortune to live in a great age. We must brace ourselves and triumph over hardship. Cantorek sweats and spits out a dirty piece of wood that has lodged in his teeth. Middlestat stoops down and says reproachfully, and in the trifles never lose sight of the great adventure, Territorial Cantorek. It amazes me that Cantorek does not explode with a bang, especially when during physical exercises, Middlestat copies him to perfection, seizing him by the seat of his trousers as he is pulling himself up on the horizontal bar so that he can just raise his chin above the beam, and then starts to give him good advice. That is exactly what Cantorek used to do to him at school. Extra fatigues are detailed off. Cantorek and Bottcher bread fatigue. Take the handcart with you. A few minutes later, the two set off together, pushing the barrow. Cantorek in a fury walks with his head down, but the porter is delighted to have scored light duty. The bakehouse is away on the other end of the town, and the two must go there and back through the whole length of it. They've done that a couple of times already, grins Middlestat. People have begun to watch for them coming. Excellent, I say, but hasn't he reported you yet? He did try. Our CO laughed like the deuce when he heard the story. He hasn't any time for schoolmasters. Besides, I'm sweet with his daughter. He'll mess up the examination for you. I don't care, said Middlestat calmly. Besides, his complaint came to nothing because I could show that he had had hardly anything but light duty. Couldn't you polish him up a bit? I asked. He's too stupid. I couldn't be bothered, answers Middlestat contemptuously. What is leave? A pause that only makes everything after it so much worse. Already the sense of parting begins to intrude itself. My mother watches me silently. I know she counts the days. Every morning she is sad. It is one day less. She has to put away my pack. She does not want to be reminded by it. The hours pass quickly if a man broods. I pull myself together and go with my sister to the slaughterhouse to get a pound or two of bones. That is a great flavor, and people line up early in the morning and stand waiting. Many of them faint. We have no luck. After waiting by turns for 3 hours, the queue disperses. The bones have not lasted out. It is a good thing that I get my rations. I bring them to my mother, and in that way we all get something decent to eat. The days grow ever more strained, and my mother's eyes grow more sorrowful. 4 days left now. I must go and see Kemrick's mother. I cannot write that down. This quaking, sobbing woman who shakes me and cries out on me, why are you living then when he is dead? Who drowns me in tears and calls out, what are you there for at all, child? When you, who drops into a chair and wails, did you see him? Did you see him then? How did he die? I tell her that he was shot through the heart and died instantaneously. She looks at me. She doubts me. You lie. I know better. I've felt how terribly he died. I've heard his voice at night. I've felt his anguish. Tell the truth. I want to know. I must know it. No, I say. I was beside him. He died at once. She pleads with me gently. Tell me. You must tell me. I know you want to comfort me, but don't you see you torment me far more than if you told me the truth? I cannot bear the uncertainty. Tell me how it was, and even though it will be terrible, it will be far better than what I have to think if you don't. I will never tell her. She can make mincemeat out of me first. I pity me, but she strikes me rather stupid all the same. Why doesn't she stop worrying? Kemrick will stay dead whether she knows about it or not. When a man has seen so many dead, he cannot understand any longer why there should be so much anguish over a single individual. So I say rather impatiently, he died immediately. He felt absolutely nothing at all. His face was quite calm. She is silent. Then she says slowly, will you swear it? Yes. By everything that is sacred to you? Good God, what is there that is sacred to me? Such things change pretty quickly with us. Yes, he died at once. Are you willing to never come back yourself if it isn't true? I may never come back if he wasn't killed instantaneously. I would swear to anything, but she seems to believe me. She moans and weeps steadily. I have to tell how it happened, so I invent a story, and I almost believe it myself. As I leave, she kisses me and gives me a picture of him. In his recruit's uniform, he leans on a round rustic table with legs made of birch branches. Behind him, a wood is painted on a curtain, and on the table stands a mug of beer. It is the last evening at home. Everyone is silent. I go to bed early. I seize my pillow, press it against myself, and bury my head in it. Who knows if I will ever lie in a feather bed again? Late in the night, my mother comes into my room. She thinks I am asleep, and I pretend to be so. To talk, to stay awake with one another, it is too hard. She sits long into the night, although she is in pain and often writhes. At last, I can bear it no longer, and I pretend I have just wakened up. Go and sleep, mother. You will catch cold here. I can sleep enough later, she says. I sit up. I don't go straight back to the front, mother. I have to do 4 weeks at the training camp. I may come over from there on Saturday, perhaps. She is silent. Then she asks gently, are you very much afraid? No, mother. I'd like to tell you to be on your guard against the women out there in France. They are no good. Ah, mother, mother, you still think I am a child. Why can I not put my head in your lap and weep? Why have I always have why have I always to be strong and self-controlled? I would like to weep and be comforted too. Indeed, I'm a little more than a child. In the wardrobe still hang shorts, short boys' trousers. It is such a long time ago. Why is it over? Where we are, there aren't any women, mother, I say as calmly as I can. And be very careful at the front, Paul. Ah, mother, mother, why do I not take you in my arms and die with you? What poor wretches we are. Yes, mother, I will. I will pray for you every day, Paul. Ah, mother, mother, let us rise up and go out, back through the years where the burden of all this misery lies on us no more. Back to you and me alone, mother. Perhaps you can get a job that is not so dangerous. Yes, mother, perhaps I can get into the cookhouse. That can be easily done. You do it then. And if the others say anything, that won't worry me, mother. She sighs. Her face is a white gleam in the darkness. Now you must go to sleep, mother. She does not reply. I get up and wrap my cover around her shoulders. She supports herself on my arm. She is in pain. And so I take her to her room. I stay with her a little while. You must get well again, mother, before I come back. Yes, yes, my child. You ought not to send your things to me, mother. We have plenty to eat out there. You can make much better use of them here. How destitute she lies there in her bed. She that loves me more than all the world. As I am about to leave, she says hastily, I have 2 pairs of underpants for you. They're all wool. They'll keep you warm. You must not forget them in your pack. Ah, mother, I know what these underpants have cost you in waiting and walking and begging. Ah, mother, mother, how can it be that I must part from you? Who else is there that has any claim on me but you? Here I sit, and there you are lying. We have so much to say, and we shall never say it. Good night, mother. Good night, my child. The room is dark. I hear my mother's breathing and the ticking of the clock. Outside the window, the wind blows and the chestnut trees rustle. On the landing, I stumble over my pack, which lies there already made up because I have to leave early in the morning. I bite into my pillow. I grasp the iron rods of my bed with my fists. I ought never to have come here. Out there, I was indifferent and often hopeless. I will never be able to be so again. I was a soldier, and now I am nothing but an agony for myself, for my mother, for everything that is so comfortless and without end. I ought never to have come on leave.